quick activity, but I am going to revisit some of the stuff we did last class. We saw some indicators. First, as a sanity check, can everybody hear me again? Perfect, thank you very much. So, when we left off, we had successfully controlled the running of the software in x64 debug. We were able to bring it in, and by watching Process Hacker, and more importantly, Process Hacker without a space, not Process Hacker 2. We saw that we were able to view the results of some of the handles or the settings for some of the handles by using Process Hacker and not Process Hacker 2, for whatever reason. But we were able to step through our code event by event by event and able to extract some key things from the memory, the registers, the handles around the execution of that code. One of them was the key that was used to encode the text that was sent over to the server. And when we did that, we realized it was a list of executables, things that were running in the memory of the compromised machine. That, taken alongside of the fact that there was some command line stuff such as exit equals tixc and execute is the sexc and conf is fnoc. And there was a fourth one, I can't remember off the top of my head, but there was a bunch of parameters that it was looking for. So we're going to try and fake those parameters out. We're going to try and set up a web server as we've done before, but this time it's not just going to sit there and accept requests. What we're going to try and get it to do today is to respond to those requests and see what happens. We're just going to try throwing stuff at it. Again, this is an introductory level virus analysis, so the process is pretty simple and straightforward. As I've done in the past, I've chosen something that is very easy for us to follow along and manipulate. They're not all this easy, but it does give you an idea of the kinds of tools that you may use to see exactly how a virus operates, and that's what we're hoping to do today. First things first. We took a look at x64 debug in our last class, and we were using this for our malware. I'm going to try and remember the steps that I used last time. I might get something wrong, but that's fine. We also had Process Hacker running as well. Not Process Hacker 2, but Process Hacker without the space. Not Process Hacker 2 because it doesn't give us access to the handles that are running, which is fine. We don't really need to worry about that for this class. But still, it gives me an idea which one we should be using, which one over the other, okay? Once we have these two items running, as you can see here, that's when we go and we open up our malware, okay? There it is right there in recent files. That's pretty good. Now, I can also click on open, go to my documents, and select my desktop, and select my shortcut. It doesn't matter, it's 6 of one, half of the other. And again, because in my settings I have it stopped at entry, I don't have to worry about making sure it runs unnecessarily when it loads up. It is running. We see it here in Process Hacker, but it is a sub-process of the x64 debug process, which is good. The first thing we did was set breakpoint, and the breakpoint that we set to was read file. However, it is possible, before you set that again, if you look at the breakpoints, it's still there from before. We still have that break file setting, so I really don't need to do that today. Okay, I'll just go back to my CPU. Before I do though, alright, before I start stepping through the execution of this, if you take a look at slide, what slide is that? 3 of today's handout, testing command and controls. By the way, when you see C2 in the information security world, either through pen testing or through malware, it doesn't matter. If you see the letters, the letter C and the number 2 or C2 together, they're talking about command and control. Trying to control things remotely. It's more commonly, I think, seen in malware, but we also do see command and control in the pen testing world as well. All right, so one of the first things we want to do is make sure that we have, well, let's just do this quickly. This is what we got yesterday. ads.php, it had exec equals 60, file equals elif, conf equals f0, and exit equals tixi. So we're going to play with some of those options today, understanding that it probably runs every 30 seconds or so. We've already exploited the key used to encode that text, so we don't need to worry about that again today. We just need to ensure that we have the results from that analysis in our last attempt. So given that, I want to again set up my world. If you recall from our settings last time, my IP address is set to 192.168.56. In my case, it's .102 with the gateway being 101. When I check that over here, 101 is the IP address of my host-only adapter. Also, all DNS requests on this machine are going to this. So anything I do with regards to web requests and web traffic, all of that is going to go through my Remnux server. So that's the other component that we have in place. We have set up our test environment so that we can step through the execution of this file properly. We also have the correct network environment set up. The IP address of this machine is not as important as the gateway address, and the gateway address is actually the IP address of Remnux. Perfect. That's great. Now on Remnux, I want to run a couple of things. First off is fake. Let's make that a little easier for all of us. First thing I'm going to run is fake DNS. But as we saw last time, it's trying to run that on the wrong adapter. I don't want that. If I take a look before I cancel, that is the adapter address for my NAT adapter. That is not for our, it's not host only, but we're emulating the host only network. So we need to ensure that if we're going to run fake DNS, we have to run it on the right adapter. The easiest way to do that is to disable the other adapter. And I can't remember it off the top of my head, but there it is there. Sudo IP link set dev eth0 down. That is command 295. Now I can highlight that and paste it down at the bottom. And that's just what I did. Or, I'll show you guys another trick. I don't know if I've shown you this. I'm pretty sure I have shown you, but not in detail. And I'm sure Brad has shown you as well. That is command 295 in my history. So all I really need to do is exclamation 295, and it'll execute that command. Again, how did I get here? I typed history, and it shows me my history. I can scroll up to the command I want to execute, and it is, well, actually, let's do this one, 313. I want to execute sudo IP link set eth0 down. That's command 313. Exclamation or bang 313. The adapter is down. IP adder just to verify, and eth0 is down. My host only like adapter is up. So now when I type in fake DNS, it is tied to the correct adapter. Perfect. That's what I want to see. Open up another tab again. And the other thing I wanted to do was httpd start. I might need to sudo that, I'm not sure. Nope. Nope, that should be it. ps-eaf. And there it is, the Nginx. So it's running an Nginx web server, but that's okay. I've got a web server running perfect. All right? All right. So how did I do that? I typed in httpd start, just like that. Okay? So, quick refresh. I had two adapters here. When I tried running fake DNS, it ran it on the wrong adapter. I shut down that adapter, the wrong adapter, I ran it again, and now it's running on the correct adapter. If yours starts up on the correct adapter, you don't have to worry about it. If it doesn't, you have to tell Fake DNS to use the correct adapter. I also started a web server. Again, there's only one adapter that's going to work on, but it would work on both, but we're okay on this one here. Okay? Alrighty, and that takes us to slide 4. Now what we want to do is, now we can start stepping through our fake DNS, or our executable here. So I'm going to go debug and run. Because I have a checkpoint in place, I can do debug and run. It'll run for a sec, and then it says I'm still at the entry breakpoint. That's fine. Debug and run again. And now I've reached the breakpoint for the read file. Perfect. And we took a look at everything that happened here. We found some information. We saw one of our handles, again, is pointing to EC for me in this executable. That handle pointed to the brbbconfig.temp file. We knew we were at the right place. We knew we wanted to decrypt that. So we told it at this point to, you know what? Run until user code, run until user code. We wanted it to do the next thing immediately after the read file. And it did a test EAX. It's just something happening related to the programming that happened in the background. And then we found, again, the decrypt function right there. Now we could select that and run up to it and step through. But what I said was, I'm going to test the line after that. Just like it went to the line after read file, I want to go to test EAX, the line below the decrypt function. And now, when I say debug, run until the selection, notice all the empty information here. This doesn't run yet, so none of this information is populated. When I do a run until selection, that's when it starts populating registries, it starts populating values, and now it's again sitting paused, ready to go and try and connect to the website. Okay? That's it for my pauses. I have no more breakpoints set, so when I tell it to run again, it's just going to start running. Did I have to do this inside of x64 debug? No. I could have just done it elsewhere, but this gives us a bit of a refresher, said maybe in a slightly different manner, maybe making it a little bit clearer. Okay? Also, this is how easy it is for you to recreate the artifacts for the competency. I mean, I've been talking the whole time I've been doing this, and I still did it in a couple of minutes. It is very easy, once you understand what you're doing, to recreate the artifacts when it comes time for you to show me your competency. All right? So, now I've got all that in place. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the document root of my web server. Again, I am on page 4 of the handout. I'm going to take a look at the var www folder and see if there's anything here. There's a directory called HTML, perfect. HTML ls -al. Doesn't look like there's anything in there. This better work. Echo. And I'm typing in the command, as you can see, on. I'm going to tell it to execute something. I'm going to tell it to execute c:/windows/notepad.exe. All right, and I'm echoing that, and this is all one line, and I'm redirecting the results, as you've seen with Brad, to a file called ads.php. So let's see if that works. I should have tested this. I'm sorry. This is one of the easier ones. It should have worked. Let's see. And when I take a look at ads, all it does is say execute, or sexy, execute backwards, c:/notepad or windows/notepad.exe. Okay? Perfect. Once I've got that, I can allow brbbot to continue to run. By going debug and run again, it's just going to start running. And right away, Notepad pops up. Right away. Now you can pause execution. I don't know if it's paused or not. It's probably still running. But at the end of the day, it fired up a notepad. But please pay attention, okay? It doesn't look, there it is there. It doesn't always show up as notepad, but we see it here. We have brbbot running, and then we have notepad as a sub-process. Columns, choose a column. What was it? Privilege. Not privilege. What was it? No. Oh. I can't remember. Oh, wait a minute. I have it in my notes. What the hell did I call it? Integrity. That's what it was. It wasn't privilege, it was integrity. Choose a column. There it is. Integrity. I want to show integrity. I'm going to move that up just below the CPU. Okay. And then we see that notepad is running high under brbbot that's running high. And when I close it, it goes really high for a second and then powers off. Now, right here, my execution is paused again. If I go into debug and run, it'll run again and it'll keep spawning instances of notepad. Sometimes it doesn't show up on the taskbar. Now it does seem to be showing up on the taskbar, and that's probably got something to do with the fact that Windows, even though we don't want it to be extra secure, is still extra secure. Even though we're trying to use it as a testbed environment, Flare is still having problems managing some of the security features in Windows. And you can see every 30 seconds, because this website is returning the execute command Windows Notepad every 30 seconds, it's going to keep spawning new instances of Notepad, one after another. And that's what the command and control is doing. Okay? Now there's a couple of ways of stopping this, but let's have some fun. Let's use command and control to stop it. I'm going to rm ads.php. Perfect. And I'm going to I'm going to echo tixi. Because it's just one word, I don't need to put it inside of quotes. And I'm going to redirect that to ads.php. Perfect. When I take a look at ads.php, all it says is tixi. And once I do that, and we wait the certain amount of time, ideally brbbot will shut down. And there it is. I don't know if you were watching, but the easy way to look at it, it's not running in Process Hacker. Notepad is still there. Notepad is no longer whenever we terminate the virus, Notepad still runs as high privilege outside of x64 debug, outside of brbbot. These subprocesses are still running, and they're still running as high. And that's what I'm talking about. Note that when BRB is terminated and no longer has child processes, Notepad is not a child process, and it's still running as high integrity, high priority applications. So even though it shut itself down, its child processes, whatever they are still running and still running as high. And that's scary. Now we can shut these down one after another. That's not a problem. Also note that because we sent tixi to our malware, it shut it down inside of our debugger, which is perfect. All right, and that's what I'm talking about in the handout. When we run this, when we first create the notepad, it starts spawning instances of notepads. Because we have the sleep 30 seconds, it does it every 30 seconds or so. And they are sub-processes of the brbbot executable. Okay? When we change our command and control from sexy or execute notepad to tixi or exit, which is what we have right here. When I take a look at the contents of ads, it still says tixi. All right, its command that it is setting is exit backwards. When I set that, it actually starts shutting down the malware. the malware gets shut down. But please note, even though it's no longer running, all right, the child processes that it spawned are still running, and those child processes are still running with high integrity or high execution permission. Even though in x64 debug you can see in the background here nothing is running. You actually see it in the status down here. You can see down here where it says it was terminated, and I might be able to show you that in mine as well. I don't know if I can show you that or not. Yeah, you can see it down here. If you want to zoom in, you can see that it was terminated in mine as well. Alrighty? Are there any questions? This doesn't always work. This last bullet on this last slide, they don't appear in the taskbar. They seem to run invisibly. That doesn't seem to happen anymore. And that's just probably elevated security on the part of Microsoft in Windows. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen anymore. There are programs that run without instances on the taskbar that could be exploited. And as we saw, it got a list of all running programs, so it could really try and take advantage of that. Are there any questions? Does that make sense? Okay. At this point, we've covered all the aspects necessary to do the dynamic analysis of the brbbot malware. I would like you to write a report on everything that you've seen, recreate as necessary. At this point, there's probably value in you reverting back to a previous checkpoint if you're using Azure, or a previous snapshot if you're using VirtualBox locally, or restore a previous clone if you're using VirtualBox locally. That's just probably the easiest. Start with a relatively new instance, go through all the steps, create the artifacts for me, and once you're ready and you're able to recreate the artifacts as I'm asking for them, then we can go ahead and do the competency. I am going to want to see the static. Have we done, and I'm asking you guys, actually no, I'm going to stop